Welcome to Tech Talk Tuesday, brought to you by Idaho Public Television and Montana PBS.
Hey, happy 2022. Welcome to Tech Talk Tuesday, our January series. We're kicking off today. My name is Nikki Bradenberg, and joined me today is my partner in crime, Carrie Wardle.
Hi.
We're excited to have two of our dear friends joining us for this series of Tech Talk Tuesday throughout the month of January. Darcy Bakkegard and Michelle Blanchet. Did it Blanchet or Blanchet?
They all work.
Yeah, work. We'll edit that part. Are the two teachers who founded the Educators Lab, and they are working on solutions to empower teachers, doing a lot of awesome things across globally. And we're really excited to have them here to talk about how to support teachers in this day and age. And so without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Michelle and Darcy and talk to us about empowering teachers in 2022.
Lovely introduction, Nikki. It's always great to be on with amazing teachers who are doing things to support other teachers, which, like you said, is our whole goal of helping other teachers rekindle that joy and that passion that initially brought you into education in the first place. But because of all of the crap that we deal with every single day as teachers, and then you add the stress of COVID and everything else related to that on top of an already overburdened educator, we're looking for any ways that we can help to rekindle that passion and joy and just empower educators as the natural change makers that they are, that they want to be, and get back to that focus of why we became teachers in the first place.
So yes, so thanks for that introduction as well. As Darcy mentioned, we care deeply about teacher empowerment. Why? Because as teachers ourselves, we didn't feel supported necessarily in the classroom. So a lot of our work revolves around how we might rethink teacher training or professional learning, so that teachers are more at the center so that they can help their kids. Teaching is a passion-driven profession. We went in there to make a difference. And so we think this is the perfect space to let teachers be able to use that. So we'll talk today about our book, about some of the tools we have. A lot of them are startup inspired, which we'll talk about just briefly, but it gives us a chance to learn from a different space and bring in tools so that we're better supported and can use professional learning for what we want, which is to help our kids to grow as people and to make that difference that we seek.
And part of making that difference for me, I agree with Michelle that sometimes professional development just didn't feel connected or relevant at all. On the other end of the spectrum, there were many times where I found professional development that really got me excited, that reminded me about how awesome teaching is and what power and what inspiration we have the potential to unleash for all of these students. And I would be so jazzed about these new ideas and these things that I wanted to try. But then the next day I'd be back in my classroom. And the reality in the day-to-day of teaching is that a lot of that inspiration, those ideas, I unfortunately lost because I didn't capture them. And I never had the time and the support to actually think through, okay, so now I got all this inspiration and I have all these new ideas. I've got these great new tools that I'm excited about, and I know my students would love them, but I never had the time, the opportunity, and the structure to actually take those ideas and get them down into some form that made it into the classroom. So if I thought about my own professional development, I think I would estimate that at least 50% of it that I was excited about never made it into my classroom because I just didn't have the time to do it, because I came back to my classroom and the reality is you have attendance, you were gone for a day, and so you have all of that stuff to catch up on, and that's just too much. So when Michelle shared with me this idea from the startup world where people had an opportunity to flesh out an idea and how am I going to solve this problem? And they had a one-page tool where they could throw out ideas and kind of see if this was going to work. And she said, what do you think about this for teachers? I wished that someone had showed that to me when I was teaching, because it's such a simple tool. It's so elegant and it can sound complex, but it's really, really a simple way to capture all that inspiration and get it down in a way and help you think through what would this look like in the classroom. That's what I wanted as a teacher. And that's why I was excited about writing Startup Teacher, because it's the information that I wanted as a teacher. It's the piece of PD that was always missing for me.
Yeah, so with the Startup Teacher, it's interesting because I think creating these tools that help teachers implement ideas is really key for like a couple key reasons. The first is you need some structure, right? Like how often are we so full of ideas that it's almost overwhelming? So you kind of don't know where to get started. And just having a few guiding questions can help. Or sometimes we're really excited about an idea, but we haven't necessarily thought through like what success looks like. Or we might have a few blind spots that we don't really think about. And then all of a sudden, once we've planned it, we realize like, ooh, I didn't really think all of this through. This has a lot of moving parts, or it's going to take a lot longer than I thought. So it's nice to have kind of a planning tool to help you implement so that you are more likely to succeed. The other thing is that learning just looks different now. And I think a big thing we wanted to do is kind of get beyond seat hours. So, whether you like a PD you've attended or not, it still tends to be very traditional. Learning looks different now than it used to, not just for students, also for adults. We would never want more seat hours for kids. We'd like to change that dynamic for teachers. We also think it's good to model that, since that's not what we want for students. And we've seen this with COVID. I mean, teachers are going out and finding solutions to challenges. I mean, just COVID hit everybody hard. There's so much talk about reimagining education. A lot of us are just trying to keep afloat. But where do we go to learn and to find solutions and to make the difference and to grow and find out what we need to help our students? And it looks different today, right? Like how many people do go to Twitter? How many people just talk to a colleague? And that's where you learn. And we have so many dynamic ways of learning. You have the teachers that are on Clubhouse that are doing Voxer book studies, and you have others that want to go to an ed camp, or again, they're just going to knock on somebody's door. And so how do we give teachers credit for that learning that they're doing so that they can improve student outcomes? Because ultimately that's what they're trying to do. And how do we give them the chance to do something with those ideas that they're learning, like Darcy mentioned earlier? And so this is really why we created the Startup Teacher, and why we've created a variety of tools to kind of help facilitate this self-directed sort of personalized learning. Because we know even if you do go to a workshop and it's great, you're going to take away an idea, and it's up to you to mold that idea and to do something with it. And it's going to look so different what you do with an idea in your class versus what somebody else does. And that's why it's so key we have tools that let teachers personalize their own learning so that they can take those healthy risks we need them to take for our students, because that's what we're ultimately always doing is solving problems every day. So it makes sense to use professional learning as time, as a space to do that, and to have tools where that can be facilitated.
I love listening to you share about this, Michelle, because everything that you were saying just reminds me too of what I wanted learning to look like for my students in the classroom. We want students to be solving problems. We want students to be excited about what they're learning. We want students to be applying their learning and using it to accomplish something. And so even if we as teachers, I know students won't necessarily understand the problems we're facing as a teacher, but I found it very helpful when I was in the classroom that I would come back and say, hey, I just read this article that talked about how when you use a pencil to take notes versus when you type to take notes, what happens in your brain. And so we're going to practice this because I'm learning and I want to get better at my practice. I found that students responded to that. And so I love that part of everything you said, and what I was hearing too, Michelle, was that it's helping teachers practice all of the skills that we want students to have. And it gives us the hands-on practice that I don't think, and granted, I went to school in the 90s, and so it was a long time ago, I really don't think that as a student, I had the opportunity to practice a lot of those skills that we now expect students to master, because I was taught in a sit and get and regurgitate on test environment, And that is kind of what my teaching training looked like. It was sit and get and regurgitate. And so now, like you said, teaching and learning is totally different, and teaching is totally different. And this whole process is a great opportunity to practice this for us as educators.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and not only is it nice for educators, but I do think they appreciate it after, because like you said, it's empowerment. Teachers feel joy when we get our purpose back, right? Like when we're able to actually work on an idea and we see it come to life, it feels good to be able to try and to do something you believe in. And I think also what's nice about this is we talk about risk taking in education. It's okay if things don't work. What's important is that we try, because it gets us one step closer to what our students need. And I think by having a process as well, eventually you do it enough, it just becomes natural. It becomes something that you don't even need to write out anymore. You just kind of think in this way, and it helps you be agile, because the world's changing fast. Our students' needs are constantly changing, so we have to be agile and we have to be able to adapt to the changing needs of not only our students, but kind of to the world. And I think in modeling this, it's also good for students, because not only you're more likely to kind of do this personalized learning with your students, but you're also helping them to uncover, the opportunity that lies in problems they'll face. And, in their life, those are the jobs of the future. I mean, we need kids to be able to come up with a solution. So when they see something in their life and they think, I have an idea on how to fix that, those are going to be our future jobs. And like, just to give an example, I always, anytime I get on LinkedIn, the first thing I see is like a little video by the World Economic Forum. And it's always on like a new policy or a new business or something positive that's happening in the world. And I'm always amazed, because they're just things I would never think of. So, a couple of my favorites are, there's this startup and they started using all of the disposable chopsticks from takeaway and created a company and are creating hardware out of those materials to reduce waste. Or on cargo ships, someone created an app because, on top of causing a lot of emissions, a lot of cargo ships were going half empty. So they created an app to make it more efficient, so the ships are actually going full. And so these are the things that like I didn't even know about this. Like it didn't even occur to me that these were problems in the world. So imagine the power, if we get into this kind of mindset of because essentially the startup teacher is about having an entrepreneurial mindset. So not necessarily starting a new business, but just that mindset of, okay, I've seen a challenge, how can I turn it into an opportunity? And not only is this great in the classroom, but when we give this mindset to our kids, who knows what will happen when they apply it to the challenges that are eventually going to come throughout their own lives. So a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, it's kind of nice to see where this mindset can take you.
I love that mindset focus, because it reminds me of something we write about in the introduction of the Startup Teacher Playbook. I think education used to be thought of that the teachers, we were kind of like running our own store and our students were our consumers, right? And we were selling them a product. And as we thought through this process, and every example that Michelle just shared reminded me, our students aren't our buyers anymore. They're our employees. They're working with us to get the information, to figure out the information, and to apply the information. And if we're just in a one direction where we're just trying to sell the information to the kids, it's not ever going to matter as much to them as if we're all in it together and we're figuring this out. And I think everything that you just said, there are so many problems like that. I mean, it's the whole basis of project-based learning, that the kids are looking for actual problems around them. So again, what I was saying earlier, this is helping us practice as teachers the skills we want to model with students. But what you were saying, Michelle, reminded me that part of this is flipping our mindset as teachers, that it's more than just flipping from guide on the side or sage on the stage. This is about being a collaborative partnership with our students of building the knowledge together. And I think practicing the skills in the Startup Teacher Playbook nurtures your brain to think that way a bit more than we maybe naturally do as teachers. But what a beautiful partnership that you can create with your students, where you're figuring this out together and you're exploring this information together and you're letting them take ownership and drive where that learning is going. And to what you were saying earlier, Michelle, that's why learning looks so different now. But I love those examples of real world problems and how people are figuring out solutions. And that's what we do as teachers every day, from the tiny micro reading our students' faces when they clearly don't understand what the heck we just said. And we revise and we figure out a new way to teach it, to those bigger problems that we're seeing and we're working out and figuring out a solution. But that reminded me that our teachers, our students rather, can be our partners in figuring out a lot of that stuff.
Well,
I just
and I'll
want to
just
add.
interject, if you don't mind, and say that the thing I loved about the Startup Teacher is also that it, like you said, empowers teachers, but that it really encourages the teachers to solve the problems. And Darcy, you kind of just said, and I was thinking similar things, like teachers are just natural problem solvers. All day long, they're solving problems in the classroom, whatever it is, right? And I have long said that if you want to sort of quote unquote fix the problems in education, just let the teachers teach. Just let them be in their classroom, let them do it, because they're going to fix it. And that's what I loved about this book was that it really gives the teachers, I think sometimes we get out of that mindset because so often teachers are told there's a problem in your classroom, let's have a PD and bring somebody else in and see if they can fix it. When in actuality, if you give the teacher a little bit of time and space, they're going to fix it, because that's just who they are. And because, like Michelle said in the earlier segment, like we just care. We care about the kids. We're passionate about what we do. And so we're going to solve the problems. So I loved that about this book, as well as that not only does it foster the teacher-student partnership, but it really gives teachers I hope, the confidence that like you can solve the problem. This is your classroom. These are your kids. We don't need to bring in some professional expert, who's never been in a classroom before to give us professional development. Like,
who's never been in your classroom before.
Exactly.
Because even people, I've been in a lot of classrooms, but that doesn't mean that I know what's going to work for your teaching style or for the specific needs of your community, your school culture, and your classroom culture. And I love all that, and I am all about teacher empowerment. I do want to take that like little side tangent to acknowledge sometimes we don't know what we don't know, and getting outside information is also a good thing. Like it's okay to say, I have a problem in my classroom and I don't know what to do about this. I mean, how many times have I called my mom? I have 2-year-olds, and how many times have I had to call a sibling or my mom saying, they're doing this and I have no idea what to do. And so I go to other experts just as a parent and as a teacher. When you see a colleague doing something that's working, borrow those ideas. There's no greater compliment as a teacher than to have someone else say, wow, what you're doing is really great. I want to try it with my kids. I agree with everything you said about let the teachers solve the problems, but know that it's okay to ask for help. You don't have to be the expert on every single thing. And a lot of times those experts though might just be sitting down the hall. Because I agree with we don't always need these outside consultants. There are a lot of experts who are on Twitter, like Michelle said, or in Clubhouse, or sitting next in the classroom next to you, where you're able to collaborate. But what I found is because of the way we do PD, so many of those natural instincts in myself were kind of squashed, because that's not how we do things in education, that it took a while to say, yeah, this is okay. Like Michelle was saying, of just telling a teacher, yeah, it's okay. Like you can try this, you can do your solution.
I just want to add, yeah, I've gone into staff rooms and wondered, like, why aren't they just listening to their teachers? Because they know what the problem is and what ought to be done. And you hear them discussing it with each other. So it's like, why is nobody taking a gamble on this? Way cheaper. And they seem to have it pretty fleshed out. So I did want to add too, I feel like, we were talking about this whole process and everything. It's actually really simple. And I want to say that because we were talking about project-based learning. And I've noticed with teachers, that's something where it's like, sounds great, but I feel like we've kind of, in some ways, overcomplicated it. Our startup teacher really just revolves around like one key document, and it's a 1-pager with guiding questions. We'll go over it in the next segment, but it's really about getting teachers that time and space to just work through what you already know, or if you've gone to an expert or if you've attended a PD, but giving you a chance to digest what the problem is, what information you have, and what you're going to do about it. So that said, I just want to kind of add that because, you know, we're talking about the mindset and everything. It's really something simple. You can't possibly fail at it. It's not complicated. And when I say fail at it, like, you just fill it out and you just try something. And in that way, if you're trying something, you've succeeded at the process. So just kind of want to end with that, at least for me, with this startup teacher process is, yes, we're about teacher empowerment, and we just wanted to create an easy tool that enables teachers to be able to sit together, to do something, to collaborate, and just make something happen for their students.
Thank you guys. I'm telling you that you got to watch the next segment because I love the educator canvas. Not that I don't love all of this, but it really is a quick and easy sort of way to get the problem solved. So we're so happy to have Michelle and Darcy here and to be talking about their book. And join us next week. We'll be going through the talking about the educator canvas.